So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard act to follow. You guys did amazing. I feel like we have kind of the inverse where we need more of the quality review piece, even though we do have some of the tools and stuff. So definitely relatable. Awesome. Let me go ahead and get this presentation going and share my screen, do the right thing, make sure I'm sharing the right one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so
No, yeah.
lightning round. Can we see stuff?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everyone, right, to the lightning round. This is the portion where we talk about the Yellow Brick Road. So for those Wizard of Oz fans, I know I used to watch it every day after school. That was literally in VHS. I would pop it in multiple times when I came home from school, my favorite. So we're talking specifically today about the change management or the Yellow Brick Road towards change management in faculty development and instructional design. My name is Jessica Campusano, and I'm an instructional designer at FIU's Herbert Wertheim College of Medicine. And here with me today, as well as the director of faculty development and instructional design, Stephanie Tadal. And so I don't know, Steph, did you want to say something real quick before we move on, or let me know if I'm
No,
good?
you're doing
Okay.
great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us again today. And yes, you can expect a lot of Wizard of Oz references. Feel free to comment your favorites in the chat. Okay, so to get us started, sometimes we might notice that faculty development can feel like this. We might notice that we blame faculty for maybe being too slow to adopt technology or at least resist it. But what if it's not so much about them disliking it, but rather about their own beliefs and perspectives? So like Dorothy's house landing on the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz, her arrival in the story shakes things up, and maybe we can help shake things up a little bit by understanding the paradigms that can flip our perspective. And Stephanie will get more into that in a second. And then for the instructional designers in the room, instructional design can sometimes feel like a whirlwind, just like Dorothy's house can be got swept up in the tornado in The Wizard of Oz. We are often navigating the complexities of instructional design, and it can leave us feeling a little bit tossed about to and fro. So we may be working with some multiple priorities, competing deadlines, the whole I need this yesterday kind of content, and even just trying to get feedback, right? And even just the content itself from our SMEs. So how can we help harness this chaotic energy and propel that change forward? So the goal is to start our way down the journey of the Yellow Brick Road of change management is on one side, we may see our beloved characters like Dorothy and the Lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. These symbolize our faculty members embarking on this adventure. And on the other side, we have the Wicked Witch and her flying monkey, representing those barriers and those challenges that we encounter along the way. And as we know, sometimes the hero needs to go through stuff to be truly tested, right? So we'll explore how to identify some of these barriers and behaviors hindering the technology integration. And we'll also showcase how some compassionate instructional design practices can help serve as our compass, guiding us toward building our very own land of Oz, a community of practice, fostering the integration of technology and adoption among faculty. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Stephanie for identifying the barriers.
Thank you, Jess. So one of the things that we try to do in our team over here at the College of Medicine is to understand that each of our faculty have their own disciplines, have their own knowledge bases, and we try to approach that very compassionately, right? One of the things that we always remember is that there are these 4 different barriers that will either support or impede the adoption of technology, depending on which side of the barrier you fall on, right? So the first 2 are by Peggy Ertmer, and these were published in 1999. What Peggy Ertmer states is that there are extrinsic factors that serve as barriers. And I'm going to add a parenthesis. They either serve as barriers or perceived barriers, right? So for the extrinsic factors, we have lack of access. Basically, if I don't have it, I can't use it. We have professional support, which is really the administrative support, allowing for the faculty to have the time that they need to understand the particular technology and how that fits into the curriculum. One of the mistakes that we see is that we see people adopt technology first and then try to squeeze it into the curriculum, versus doing an actual needs assessment and determining what type of technology we need. So we end up having a lot of technology that just isn't used. And then we have those intrinsic factors. The intrinsic factors are the non-tangibles, whereas the extrinsic are the tangibles. So we have self-efficacy, which is the belief of one's ability to be able to perform in a certain space. We have pedagogical beliefs about what teaching is supposed to look like. Do we believe in the banking method? Do we believe in a creative approach, in a constructivist approach? And each of those paradigms will really determine how we are adopting to, you know, the change in curriculum and the change of the use in technology. And then also what the role of the teacher versus the role of the student should be. So a lot of times, like in the medical college, we have these didactic style lectures where we have like the faculty up on the lecturer poll or panel, right? Panel, uh, for hours, right? For 2 hours, for 3 hours. And their understanding is that the faculty is supposed to lecture and the student is supposed to listen. So it all goes back to how do we feel about the use of technology, right? What space does technology even fit in when we're looking at this classroom development? The extrinsic factors are really those things that we can identify. And what the research has indicated is that a lot of times the extrinsic factors are not really that impactful, right? Because okay, I don't have a laptop now, I've given you one for your classroom. Are you going to use it? And then that's where we see the intrinsic factors kind of play a role. But a lot of times we can't even get there. We can't really identify what the root issue is if we don't have that level of access first. In the state of Florida, Miami-Dade County specifically, there was this digital plan that was created for the K-12 system many years ago. And what they intended to do was to increase access and use by students by increasing the number of devices made available to students. So they had this like one-on-one plan where every student would have an identified laptop or tablet associated to their student ID number. And what the outcome of that indicated was that until the pandemic, most of those laptops weren't even used because it wasn't the access, it was the belief structure. So once we can get over number one, and once we can get over number two, so, okay, I have the laptop, I believe I can use it, and I believe that there may be a space for me to use it, we move into the third barrier, which is Sci and Chi, and that was published in 2012. What Sci and Chi indicate is that even though we have it and we want to use it, what prevents us from using it is that we don't know how to blend it into the curriculum. We don't know how to make it be useful versus a burden. So that's where the instructional designers really do come in and they help the faculty navigate it. We see so many times that our faculty want to come and they're eager and they're excited, but they don't have the knowledge on how to do it. So the instructional designers help kind of bridge that gap. And then in 2019, which is Delgado, me prior to being married, the one that I identified in my own research is that once we get over number one and number two and number three, there is actually a variability that exists between teachers and faculties themselves. The perception of the teacher regarding the student's abilities or the student's interest or performance when they're using that particular technology is going to dictate whether or not that teacher uses it with a particular subset of students or in a particular course or discipline. So we will have the same teacher, let's say teaching statistics 1 and statistics 2. There are two different groups of students, and the teacher may be less inclined to teach it with stats 1 and be more inclined to teach it with stats 2. So an example like this, it has nothing to do with the teacher's paradigm or not having access. It has everything to do with the teacher's perception of the students and their ability using that particular technology. So we move forward kind of having these 4 barriers in mind, and we try to see where our faculty falls so that we can effectively help them to kind of move past it and move into the implementation phase.
So Stephanie, I do want to point out there's a comment by Amy in the chat. I don't know if you want to take a look at that and maybe quickly comment, talking about bearing in mind cultural differences.
Discomfort with, absolutely. to students what to expect from the course method and how they will engage with the course myself. Absolutely. I think that that's extremely effective, and it's very, it goes into that compassionate space of teaching and learning, but the cultural influences are also very important to keep in mind. Off to you, Jess.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So now that we've talked about the barriers, so we want to kind of discover our way or help find our way home, to use the reference of the ruby slippers, that will lead us to our home, right? And this is, we're talking about Dorothy and her companions as instructional designers, where we might serve both as guides and companions along this adventure. We embody several roles, right? And particularly, specific to start with IDs as subject matter experts. This is a quote from Hirumi Tusi, and he's talking about how instructional designers, they really understand the how and the why of learning and molding content into engaging coursework, right? So much like the scarecrow's quest for their brain. And then in addition to that, there's a study where our instructional designers were specifically mentioned as bridges, right? And as Stephanie mentioned earlier, as bridges in the technological and the pedagogical knowledge, similar to the Tin Man's search for a heart. And this came from a TPAC framework study in medical education by Human Corral, which actually comes from Mishra and Kohler. That's a famous study there too. And they point out, Mishra and Kohler point out that it's really not enough just to teach software skills, but it's also more important, especially with the rapid changes in technology, to train educators on how to integrate. And then Hume specifically pointed out or identified instructional designers and faculty development programming as bridges to help close that gap in their pedagogical and especially technological knowledge. And the technological knowledge was specifically the greatest perceived deficit in medical educators in that particular study, but in others as well. And so kind of keeping that in mind, that we can serve as a bridge in those things, but it's also important to point out how we do those things. And I think it's important to talk about this more of a collaborative approach where, you have kind of that camaraderie among Dorothy and the lion and the Tin Man, and we're valuing input from all of these different perspectives. And a couple of quick examples on that is that there was a couple of projects that I worked on as an instructional designer with faculty, with the faculty developer, with a student, right? Really kind of taking that co-design approach where the student identified a gap in the curriculum and proposed an idea to conduct an escape room. And then we talked with the faculty developer, we talked with the faculty, how do we make this particular intervention happen? And what are the logistics of that? And so really kind of taking that approach where the student identified the gap, the faculty member, was able to help supplement the content with, what they thought was the appropriate content. We ended up building an escape room on patient safety and able to deliver that to the students with the help of the instructional designer and faculty development, where the instructional designer helped to use the technology. We used a ThingLink tool to create a 360 immersive experience. And then the faculty developer helped and coached the faculty member on how to develop the learning objectives and the pre and the post assessments for that, right? So really kind of coming together as a village on this kind of collaborative approach. And then, of course, we know like our journey isn't without obstacles. Actually, I'll come back to attitude in a second. And that is part of like navigating the constraints, right? Such as the time, the resources. We know that software maybe not be available for someone. Maybe there's a hefty price tag associated with it, or the software may be discontinued, right? So to help kind of with this, I do like to offer my faculty 3 options. I call it the hoopty, the mid-level sedan, and the luxury vehicle. So each has a different level of time investment and feedback required. With obviously the hoopty, I'm going to give you the least amount of customization, the least amount of time and feedback. Sorry, hoopty is an old Miami term from like the 90s, so I always use that. And then versus something maybe more mid-level where they do have to give me a little bit more time, and then obviously the luxury vehicle. Now we're talking about fuller customization, longer project, way more investment. So I think putting it in that kind of framework where they understand that, the resources aren't infinite, that there are time considerations that need to happen, and really serving as kind of that project manager piece of it. But then overall, really kind of keeping in mind that attitude is probably the most important here, where you're keeping an open mind, you're using your critical thinking and problem solving skills. We can help kind of overcome a lot of these hurdles, like the lion finding courage, right? So my mom likes to say that you get a lot more out of people with honey, right? So listening to opposing views, asking really, really good questions, having the compassion and the patience to not just translate the tech, but really help guide faculty toward better practices, right? And I think in all of that, more important to remind ourselves that ultimately the goal is to kind of bake these technology practices and use good design in the educational experience that can help impact that learning. And I think that my kind of big takeaway in finding our way home is that Rome wasn't built in a day. You may be able to just move the needle forward and take the win on that one, and maybe on another point you don't, right? And realize that there's an opportunity to maybe continue to showcase those wins and be able to continue to gain more and more adoption. That's one example of that is integration of a social annotation tool called Perusal, where we were able to suggest it to one faculty where they were for a specific problem that they were trying to solve. They wanted to compare different forms of engaging with the content in a flipped classroom approach. And we suggested Perusal. They said yes. And then that person saying yes led to another faculty saying yes. And now we're on to the third person saying, yes, I'm interested. So okay, so that our time is up. Thank you, Stephanie, for reminding me. As a wrap up, if there are any change management practices at your institutions that have helped you move the needle, we're happy to hear them. And we do invite you to talk more about this, or if you just need to vent, feel free to reach out to us at com-idt@fiu.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Stephanie. Such great information. The 15 minutes is just torture for us because we just want more. So thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing your resources with us. I'm going to go ahead and share our screen. You will see the session code for this last session. So if you haven't entered that into the scavenger hunt game area, please do. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Charlotte.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. So I am going to share my screen and I'm going to go on over to, can you see me okay? Just a little sneak peek at what we have to look forward to tomorrow for day 3. Starting at 1 o'clock, we do have our keynote. So we did things a little bit backwards this year in the hopes that we would keep participants going all throughout all 3 days. And tomorrow is our keynote speaker with Professor Sid Dobrin doing generative AI in the classroom. We really hope to see you there, followed by concurrent sessions. And then at 3 o'clock, we also have a really awesome 4-student undergrad panel on talking about equitable digital learning led by Karen Gugliosi from Every Learner Everywhere. So that is going to be awesome. The keynote is going to be awesome. The sessions are going to be awesome. And the closing, sadly enough, at 4 o'clock is also going to be bittersweet, but also awesome. I do hope that if you are only joining us for the last day, please, please, please complete our survey to let us know what we did well and how we can improve. And just really quickly, just 2 minutes, if you could type in a 1-word reflection. This is also inside of our connections wall, but I know not everybody's doing the connections wall. If you guys would join me at Slido using this QR code, just give me a 1-word reflection on how you feel about TOPkit Day 2. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe some favorite things that you did today or favorite topics. Oh, connected. That's such a good one. Inspired. Heck yeah. Insightful, sharing community, eye-opening, motivated, engaged. Hallelujah. Oh, and we're making it into this connected word cloud, sharing, energized. Equipping. But overall, you can see there that connected and sharing are our 2 most used buzzwords and hungry cookies. A little inside joke from an earlier session. We're already having inside jokes even a day earlier. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to keep that word cloud up there. I'm going to post to the connections wall as well, just because, like I said, I want to have that as an artifact that we can keep using and use that in our post as well. So last but certainly not least, for our day 2 wrap up, I wanted to remind everybody that if you want to get those codes, please post your day 2 reflection on the connections wall under my post so it doesn't get lost. And the treasure hunt leaderboard. I don't know who is there, but right now, Serena Scalzi is in first place with the most points, followed by a two-way tie with Julie and Janine. And just for you guys, here's one more code. It's day_2_close. If you'd like to jot that down, I'll also put it in the chat. Just our one final code for the day, and we will see you all tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the final day of our TOPkit workshop. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. It's really been an inspiring and connecting day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thanks, everyone.
Truly awesome. That's right. Have a great evening. Yeah.